This video is made possible thanks to CuriosityStream. Watch TLDR ad-free and get exclusive videos from us by signing up to the CuriosityStream Nebula bundle deal at curiositystream.com/TLDREU. Putin's invasion of Ukraine has got everyone, including national politicians, speaking about where his imperial ambitions will lead him next. And the shock of war on the European continent has meant that hypotheticals that previously seemed impossible now seem worryingly conceivable. Now, before we go into it, we should say that we don't want to be alarmist. Just because Putin has invaded Ukraine doesn't mean that he's going to invade anywhere else. But in this video, we thought we'd take a look at this question and look at where Putin might invade next. As we see it, there are 5 places where Putin could invade next. They are, in order of likeliness, Moldova, Georgia, Finland, the Suwałki Gap, and then the Baltic states. Now, again, we'd like to stress that we aren't saying any of these are likely outcomes. For what it's worth, we consider all of these, apart from maybe Moldova, as very unlikely outcomes, especially given how Putin's current invasion is going for him. Anyway, disclaimer aside, let's get into it. The first and most likely candidate for Putin's second invasion is Moldova, or more specifically, Transnistria. For those of you who don't know, Transnistria is a de facto autonomous region in the east of Moldova, bordering Ukraine. For most of its post-Soviet history, Transnistria has been run by pro-Russian separatists, and now acts essentially as an independent state. Today, Transnistria has its own currency, passport, parliament, constitution, flag, anthem, and even football team. But why does that mean that they're on Putin's list? Well, there are basically 5 reasons why they're the most likely. Firstly, Russia already has troops in Transnistria, in the form of the OGRF, which means that taking it wouldn't be all that difficult. Secondly, Moldova isn't in NATO or the EU, which makes things easier for Putin, although it is worth saying that Moldova actually applied to join the EU this week, largely in reaction to Putin's invasion of Ukraine. The third reason it looks likely is Transnistria is part of Novorussia, a historical region that apparently informs Putin's imperial ambitions. Fourthly, Transnistria has already made it clear that it wants to join Russia. All 3 Transnistrian leaders have said as much, and there was even a referendum on the topic in 2006, where the public firmly gave it their support. Fifth, and perhaps most importantly though, in his press conference on Tuesday, Belarusian President Lukashenko showed a map which seemed to indicate that Russia would be launching an offensive against Ukraine from Transnistria, which would suggest at least deeper cooperation between Russia and Transnistria, possibly pre-staging a political union. So that's why Moldova, and more specifically Transnistria, comes top of our list. But next most likely is Georgia, or more specifically, South Ossetia and Abkhazia. Much like Transnistria, these regions are run by pro-Russian separatists, and Russia has recognized them as independent states since 2008, when Russian troops repelled Georgian forces from the territories. Today, most of the people who live there have Russian passports, and consider themselves to be ethnically Russian. So, South Ossetia and Abkhazia are next on our list, because much like Transnistria, they're former Soviet territories where Russia already has a troop presence. And much like Donbass, Russia currently recognizes them as independent republics, something it notably doesn't do for Transnistria. Putin will probably also be aware that if he wants to take them, he'll have to do so relatively soon. Georgia was promised NATO membership in 2008 along with Ukraine, and last week it also put in an application to join the EU. Nonetheless, an invasion doesn't seem all that likely. Putin looks pretty preoccupied with Ukraine, and it doesn't look like a great cost-benefit calculation. Putin just doesn't gain much from annexing 2 small regions that already support Russia. And post-Ukraine, any Russian aggression is bound to incur significant consequences. Next on the list, though, is Finland. Again, a big disclaimer here. A Russian invasion of Finland is very, very unlikely. Nonetheless, it comes third on our list for 2 reasons. Firstly, Finland isn't currently a member of NATO, so invasion wouldn't trigger Article 5, NATO's Mutual Defence Clause. Secondly, Finland is currently considering joining NATO, something that Putin has made very clear he doesn't like. Since World War II, Finland has remained remarkably neutral, refusing to choose between the West and Russia. Finland joined neither NATO nor the Warsaw Pact in the Cold War, and after it signed an agreement with the European Economic Community in 1962, Finland quickly joined the Soviet-led Comecon as an observer in 1973 to maintain their symmetrical relations between the two blocs. Nonetheless, in the last few decades, Finland has begun to tilt westwards. In 1994, it joined NATO's Partnership for Peace, and in 1995, it became a member of the European Union. Finland's current president has even regularly insisted that Finland is free to choose its own military alignment, including possibly joining NATO. Russia's invasion in Ukraine has dramatically accelerated this trend too, with recent polling finding that for the first time ever, a majority of Finns now want to join the alliance. And on Tuesday, Finnish MPs gathered to discuss NATO membership. Finland even offered anti-tank weapons to Ukraine, a significant break from their famous neutrality. And unsurprisingly, Putin didn't like this. And recently, the Russian Foreign Ministry warned that Finnish accession to NATO would trigger, quote, serious military political consequences, which is why we're putting a non-zero probability on a Russian invasion of Finland. Fourth on our list, though, is the Suwałki Gap. Now, we've discussed this at length in another video, so if you want to know more, then you can go and watch that. It's linked in the description. But capturing the Suwałki Gap would essentially join Kaliningrad to Belarus. The Suwałki Gap sits on the Poland-Lithuania border, so it is possible that Russia's annexation would trigger NATO's Article 5. But if Putin were to annex NATO territory, this is probably where he'd go. Not least because it would cut the Baltic states off from the rest of NATO. Nonetheless, the risk of triggering NATO's Article 5 makes this outcome very, very unlikely, at least in our eyes. Fifth and final on our list would be one of the Baltic states themselves. Again, this is very unlikely, largely because it would definitely trigger NATO's Article 5, but it's not impossible. The Polish Prime Minister and former Australian Prime Minister, Tony Abbott, have warned that the Baltic states are next on Putin's wish list to reconstruct the Soviet Union, and it's hard to rule anything out with Putin these days. So that's the list. A grouping of countries who are very wary of the fact that they could be the next Ukraine. However, with so much effort and Russian focus being expended in Ukraine, it's safe to assume that these countries can sleep easily right now. But these are countries where their political system is, at least in some way, geared to the idea that Putin could be breathing down their necks. If not militarily, then using cyber and propaganda tools to influence their neighbours. There are countries on the other end of this spectrum though. Transnistria, the breakaway region of Moldova we mentioned earlier, is desperate to join Russia, and in fact voted overwhelmingly to request Russia takes them. If you want to find out more about them and their relationship with both Russia and Moldova, then consider checking out our video on the topic, which is available exclusively on Nebula. You might have heard of them before, but my creator friends and I have teamed up to build our own platform where we don't need to worry about demonetization or the algorithm. Over there, you can find all of our latest videos ad-free, but we're also posting exclusive Nebula Plus videos over there too. We've already got 4 of them live, and it's not just us either. All of our favourite educational creators are also there, like Wendover Productions, Real Life Law, Polymatter, Legal Eagle, Half as Interesting, and many others. But wait, we said this video is brought to you by CuriosityStream, right? Well, as the platform full of the best documentaries online, they naturally love educational creators like us. And as such, we've worked out a deal whereby if you sign up for CuriosityStream using the link in the description, you'll also get free access to Nebula. And that's not a trial either. You'll get access for as long as you're a member. And to make things even better, for a limited time, they're offering a deal where you can get 26% off their already low price, making an entire year of both services less than $15. That's less than $15 a year for all of your favourite educational creators, as well as superb documentaries on CuriosityStream. Signing up at curiositystream.com/TLDR Global or clicking the link below not only gets you the deal, but also directly supports TLDR and educational creators on the platform more generally. as well as getting you original content and an ad-free experience.